On page 145, this is the chapter on democracy. I don't know if I mentioned, but there's some really good stuff going on here. So what he's talking about is, I'll just paraphrase it. He says he's talking about the significance of laws in how they are, in what medium they are conveyed. So he says that, like, he doesn't talk about this part, but I'll mention it anyways, as a way of going into it. For example, Hammurabi's Code of Laws. You may know that they were printed on a big slab of stone that was in the middle of a town, and on these laws, and on this slab was the laws. It's significant that the laws were printed on a stone. You can't edit a stone. They're printed, and that is it. If you want new laws, you have to get a new stone and print on that new stone. You can't edit the stone, right? The same kind of feeling was meant for our laws, or the U.S. laws, I guess, if you want to discuss the Declaration of Independence and the Bill of Rights and all that. These are printed on paper. These are documents. These are also not to be edited. They are a code. But consider the present culture. Consider where ideas are conveyed on images. Well, images can be edited. And that's why you see all kinds of editing going on, and memes, and all this stuff today is people are able to participate in the making of these laws and meaning and all that. People are invited to, like, even consider speech walls and free speech walls, which are never, usually often not free speech walls. They're edited, they're filtered speech walls. But you have this idea of the medium today is a changeable medium, and it's a medium that other people are allowed to participate in. They're not a code of laws written on stone and then put in the town. They are not imposed like that. Same with that famous picture of the signing of the Constitution, or the what was it called? The something convention, Confederate Convention, or I don't know, whatever it was called. All these people with white wigs are signing a document. This isn't a democracy. It's not as if all the townspeople were invited in too, or all the people from the colonies. This was assigned by certain people, elite people, I guess, that had a great idea and put it into law. It's just like Hammurabi's great idea. Now, today, and he talks about on the next page as well, and he mentions, I should mention it, a book by Lawrence Grossman called The Electronic Republic. And he says that today, with electronic media, can we not have more what he calls participatory democracy, which essentially, you may have heard of, and it's funny, it's the derogatory term is a plebiscite. I always think that's funny that I hear on the radio sometimes that they're always for democracy. Well, democracy is so wonderful. And yet, if people vote on anything but the prime minister or the president, if they want to vote on whether we want to go to war or vote on some kind of like municipal issue, now that's called a plebiscite, and that's bad. Right? But that's democracy. It's supposed to be democracy. But anyways, the idea is that, according to this Lawrence Grossman guy in The Electronic Republic, which is a book, that with the internet, we could have more participation. We could have more voting, more plebiscites going on. If there's some war, or if there's foreign aid, or any kind of social issue, I guess in the States, nationalizing healthcare, or there's all kinds of things you can think about, building a subway or some other kind of mass transport. These things could be voted on. I could have, as a citizen of the city I'm in, I could have an account with the municipal, with the city, and I could log on to my account, which is tied to my name, my address, and I could vote on something. I could vote on whatever's going on in my city. will that be a road to progress? Having more people participate. And it reminds me of discussions that were had in Athens in ancient Greece when they were having this experiment with democracy, and they were allowing more and more people to participate. For the longest time, well, of course, there's lots of societies where you can't vote. Even today, there's lots of societies where you can't vote. But in Athens and ancient Greece, they, I think, were the first to have a democracy. And the first rung, the most limited democracy is the vote of property owners. I think you could cut it. I think that's where you cut it first. Democracy is always have to be by the people, but the most limited democracy is one of a selected people. And I think the first rung is property owners. So if you're going to have a democracy, the first has to be at least people who own property, because that would suggest either royal assent or productivity. And productivity and royal assent are affiliated with or correlated with intelligence, hopefully, maybe. So it was believed that, well, if we let these people vote, that should be okay. That these people at least will be informed. Royalty, hopefully, well, I don't know. I guess it's hit and miss, but people who are productive, merchants or some kind of salespeople or whatever, people who sell stuff or make stuff, they tend to be people who are more informed. So we'll let them vote. We'll let the property owners vote. People who own property and pay taxes, they should vote, because I guess they're the ones who are going to be paying for any kind of social programs or any wars. So we'll let them be the first people who vote in democracy. And then in Athens, it was believed that, well, we need to widen it even more. We need more participation. So we're going to let everyone vote that's a citizen of Athens. So and I don't think it was every person. I think it was every house. If you had a house and you were a citizen, then your house got a vote. And I make sure to clarify that, because people always say that women couldn't vote. But I don't think women, I think women can have an influence on their husbands, just like they do today. People like to joke about women dragging their husbands around with a chain around their necks, which I think is, that's not horribly inaccurate. It is obviously hyperbole, but it is not completely inaccurate. And I imagine that a portion of that was true in the past as well. And so through the vote, through the household, I think women participated. So that was another widening of democracy. And then eventually, of course, they let anyone vote who was in the city. You just show up and raise your hand, and that was your vote. So even non-citizens, I think, may have been able to vote. But anyways, you have this widening of the circle, right? So the question is, will this promote a good society where everyone can vote, no matter what? Notice that there's no intelligence test for voting. You can vote for the country. You can vote for your own selfish interests. You can vote any way you want. There's no test for that. And is that such a great idea? This widening of democracy. And just to say one more thing on it before I carry on with the book, I notice that there are parts of our life which are democratic, and there are parts of our life which are not democratic. And the parts of our life which are not democratic are often a good thing. When we go to our doctors, it's not a democracy. We are asking for advice. We're asking for expertise, and that knowledge does not come with a vote. Now you can choose to follow that person's advice or not, but that That is not the same as having a vote on some kind of social policy. This is an expert that's handing down the truth, and it's up to you to decide to accept it or not, or find someone else who you think is more competent. So there are parts of our lives which are not democratic. Marriage is not democratic. It's not as if that you marry someone, they're not open season. You are essentially limiting their access. It's a closed relationship. That's not a democracy, right? That's closed. You're closing yourself and that other person off from any other sexual partners. That's not a democracy. There's all kinds of parts of our lives which are not democratic and seem to work quite well. But then, of course, other parts we want to be democratic. We want to be able to participate in our country's politics, as much as that may or may not work out if the masses of the people are not educated or only voting out of their self-interest, only voting out of their personal circumstances, or whether that's a corporation that's voting, a corporation's people and lobbyists that are influencing politics to get breaks for them, corporate welfare, whatever it might be, or similarly, people who are voting themselves more social benefits, whether that's welfare or cheap child care or whatever it might be, people who vote for their own welfare interests. That happens. It's the same thing. It's exactly the same. These people aren't voting for the country's interests. They're voting for their own interests. So anyways, the question is, technology, the point is that technology has given us the means to provide more people to participate, but as the book is hammering the point home, yes, the technology is providing better means to have a democracy, a more true democracy, but we have to ask the normal question, is that a good idea? Is that what we want for social organization? On page 150, he makes a good point, I think, about the need of a print culture to maintain democracy. The essential idea is that does it need maintenance, and what is that maintenance of civilization, as opposed to such as a tribal organization? Does it need any maintenance? And what I get from it is he's saying that reading a civilized life and peaceful organization of peoples requires a maintenance of careful thought and reading of texts, and it takes time. It is maintenance to make a civilized person. I guess it's in the Lockean Protestant view. It takes some time to make a civilized adult, and it takes some time with reading and contemplating the ideas. But the tribal life, a life that Rousseau's children might produce, that tribal life requires no maintenance and no preparation. And you can connect that with the current media culture of pictures. So pictures take no effort to concretize or to understand. Pictures are often give you instant feeling or instant an instant message. They don't require, it's not like a painting that requires some time to capture what's going on in the painting or what the artist is trying to convey. A picture is often designed to provide an immediate reaction. It does not require any kind of careful study or maintenance. It's like an us versus them, or this is bad. I'm going to take a picture and gray it and make it look bad because I want you to look at this picture, and whatever the content is, I want it to make you feel bad, so you think that you should do something to help. You see, that's the picture. That's not an argument. That's not something that you have to think through the ideas. It's providing you easy propaganda. through these pictures. And I think what Postman's point is that these are the requirements, or this is what leads to tribalism, returning to tribalism. Whereas the requirements of a civilized life is through this careful thinking and education and preparation. I guess another way of putting it is that civilized life is not a default state of mankind. The default state of mankind is probably what's his name said, Hobbes. Life is brutal and short. But the default state of mankind is anarchy and is cannibalism and all kinds of nastiness. That is the default state, almost like the Wild West, sort of. But to have a civilized life, that requires far more preparation and civilized discourse, etc.